So we don't have our chocobo, unfortunately, because she is currently shedding her feathers and changing her color. So we have to hoof it the old-fashioned way. So yeah, so the quest to unlock Halatali is in Vesper Bay. So you're going to naturally get it as you come in. And that's by design. They purposely put a couple of quests out there with the blue exclamation mark and the plus symbol. The game is going to make you come back to Vesper Bay over and over. Pray Return to the Waking Sands is a meme for a reason. So you're going to see it. You're good to pick it up whenever you'd like. It's a very short quest to unlock, so I'm probably just going to cut straight to when we're there. I'm not going to show you all of the walking, but it's a short quest to unlock, and then it's a relatively fast-paced and fun dungeon to do, but it's got some fun mechanics. It's a good first one to run if you are having some anxiety about doing content with other human beings. Alright, so the quest starts with Nedrick Ironheart. Hello, Halatali. Hail there, adventurer. I'm Nedrick Ironheart, an explorer by trade and signed by allegiance. And you, my friend, look to me, an adventurer in need of a challenge. I happen to know just the place that will offer it to you. Tucked away in a corner of Eastern Thanaland lies Halatali, and it is there that you will find all the excitement you crave. The place boasts a storied history. It was built some 100 years past as a training ground for gladiators. The calamity laid ruin to it, though, as it did to most things. Now Halatali is a shadow of its former self. In the dark of that shadow lurks wild beasts, both bloodthirsty and beyond count. For one such as yourself, I dare say there is no place finer than Halatali to test your skill and refine your technique. Indeed, I've taken the liberty of passing your name along to the flames who oversee the place. Should you visit, speak with one Fafajoni near the entryway. Fafajoni. Okay, so we're going to go talk to Fafajoni. Fafajoni? Sometimes fantasy names are weird. So we found Fafajoni. He's a little potato boy, and he looks spooked. I don't know what's got him so spooked. What's got you so spooked? It's okay, Fafajoni. If it is the halls of Halatali you seek, you need seek no further. Permit me to tell you something of this place. The name comes from an ancient tongue, Halatali, meaning the land of many shadows. It was here that our distant ancestors first settled, and you've not come all this way for a lesson in history. Shh, listen. Do you not hear the howls and growls? Do you not feel how they shake the very earth beneath you? Those sounds are the work of no wind, my friend, nor that rumbling the doing of any shadows. Those are the calls of Halatali. For now the beasts once kept for the Colosseum lurk there. And these are no gentle beasts broken by the hand of man. No, there are those within that even the might of the immortal flames cannot tame. From the look of you, you must be myth. I received word from Nedrick that you might be along. By his recommendation, I grant you leave to enter freely. I only pray you're able to find your way out. Okay, thank you. Bye, Fafajoni. Nice talking to you. All right. So as a monk, pugilist, really, we still do not have our AoE rotations. This dungeon sinks us to level 23, so we are still limited just to our single target rotation. If you watch the previous guides on Tantara and Copperbell and Sastasha, you'll know that the only positional we currently have is a flanking positional. So we want to make sure that anytime we can, that we are at the flank, the side of the enemy. Now there is no duty support for this dungeon, so you do have to run it with humans. That means that they are going to largely skip rooms, which is something for you to be mindful of. Always dodge your AoEs. There's a series of these fights against these doctors, which are Durahans or Dullahans, depending on your mythology of choice. And these imps. There are also a series of encounters that involve bombs. Bombs do explode, so they're one of those areas we have to avoid before this first boss. Now the fire main boss, basically single target here, but throughout the fight, he's going to start spawning little flames that are going to come out of the candles. So you see how the fire just got very bright? So what we need to do is we need to find the flames that are dancing towards us and kill them. They're called the Diamantises. And they're over here. If any of these flames get to the central bonfire, a huge AoE starts going out. So we just got to kill them. And as you can see, now there's multiple like streams of them have spawned, basically. All right. Once the Noxious spawns, this is the final enemy. You're good to go back to the boss, which is almost dead. Okay, our party members are not fighting them, which is fine. Some parties will purposely just not do the mechanic, but I do recommend doing it just for practice. Once you kill the boss, click the ether flow. Some people get really stuck on this. They're like, how do I move forward? Just click the fire. And this teleports us around. So this dungeon can be a little bit disorienting for some players because there's like a lot of teleporting around. Don't forget you can stun the bombs like I just did. Focus down enemies one at a time. Now, if you are a Lancer or another like Reaper, for example, you might have an AoE ability at this level, but Monk does not. Pugilist doesn't get theirs until level 26. So all right. Kill these sides. Scythe Mantis, very easy. Again, like staggered group pulls here. Now, if this, and later on in the guide, you'll see there'll be portions of the guide for like range DPS and all of that. Range DPS can assist with doing the AoE a lot more. So these pulls would be going even faster. But just do the best you can with what you got. So Melee DPS, you're just focusing on these single target rotations. Nice and easy. There are these chain winches that you see that we're pulling. They drop treasure, or enemies. It's an enemy. They're very easy to kill. You see, I just soloed that one. And if it's a treasure, then it's treasure. We also have to open up them to open up the way forward, which is why we have to do it. So again, just parking myself to the flank during our rotation over and over. Nice and easy. We are finally getting some new gear, which is nice. Okay, so for this boss, he's basically a lizard boss. He does some ground target AoEs. Make sure you stand out of them. But most importantly, he electrifies this water. He's standing in this pool. So you're going to need to make a point to not stand in the pool while it's electrified. So the tank just pulled him. Okay. And now the water just got electrified. So you saw how I ran out of it. While the water is electrified, we kill the sprites. Dodge the AoEs. He comes back out. Hit him a couple of times. And you just rinse and repeat. While the water's electrified, he's immune to damage. So don't worry about trying to run out there and do damage to him. He's dead. Once he dies, make sure you loot your 2 treasure coffers here. And then click on the ethereal flow. And that takes you to the 3rd portion of the dungeon. This is a very quick dungeon because a lot of it is skippable. So there's this section over here with this treasure coffer. This spawns enemies if we go over to it. Almost all parties are going to skip that. So don't be alarmed and don't go over there on your own because your party won't be there to help you. Once you kill this group, we open up the door and we're at the final boss. Oh no, the Arcanist, he went and did it. He did what I said not to do. That's the reason why. Luckily, we were watching. We were good. And so is the tank. The tank had him, so we're fine. Alright. So this is... We're already at the final boss. This is a very quick and easy dungeon. So for the final boss, he's kind of... we do get the achievement for this exploration, by the way. So you're fine. You don't have to do any other exploration. So for this boss, he has moments where he's invulnerable and you have to deal with ads. He's kind of a combination of the first 2 bosses. So you just gotta jump in and out of the 2 kind of like modes of the fight. And they started without me. Alright. So again, like the flame in the first boss, if any of those little ads, those minions, make their way to him, they start doing big AoE damage. So, uh-oh. Okay. So we're just going to keep an eye, and then we're going to hit this, hit the boss, hit this. Oh, it exploded. All right, and for this last phase, he doesn't turn invincible. So we're good to just kill him. He's going to die before I can even pull off the limit break. That's it. That's Halatali. I know that went very, very fast. This dungeon does go very smooth. But this is a really good one. Again, this is your first intermediate tutorial, intermediate guide. But it's really not that hard at all. It's very accessible. Even if you're brand new at the game, there's nothing here that's really going to stress your party out. People are going to go to good speed, so give it a try. And if you have anxiety, watch the rest of this video. The rest of this video will cover the different roles. But that is Halatali on Melee DPS. So again, Halatali on tanks. So as tank, our number one priority is keep the run going at a good clip. Keep aggro on everything. We're still not going to have access to Rage of Halone. So it's going to be single target rotation whenever it's 1 or 2 enemies. The rest of the time doing total clips over and over and over. If you are a warrior instead, you'll be doing like your overpower over and over, your conal AoE, but you're just doing your AoEs over and over. There's a couple of larger pulls, so we'll make sure that we have our rampart in reprisal form. But really this dungeon is very, very low risk. Not a lot to be worried about or scared about in here, So similar to the previous videos, if you watch the Stasha Timtara and Copperbell Mines, we want to open up with using our tank stance, which for Paladin or for Gladiator, it's Iron Will. While we're running, we're going to be doing shield lobs. Shield lob is going to grab the AoE, or grab the enemies. Start with the far one. And then we can just kind of keep throwing it. And you see, I'm just rotating through. Doing our AoE rotation now. Pick everything up. I'm going to target one of these bombs. There we go. So that way we can stun him. Okay, that one, we lost him. It's going to come back to us. Our stun is back up. We only have 2 enemies up, so we're doing our single target rotation. If you notice, I'm not being perfect. People aren't going to expect you to be perfect, especially in a dungeon like this. So as tank, this is a great dungeon to learn. Again, I'm facing the enemies away from my party members. I'm going to do this AoE rotation. Once the Doctor dies, we're going to switch to a single target rotation. There we go. For this boss, we're going to tank the fire main exactly where he is. We're going to do our single target rotation. And if we start seeing any flames making their way to the central fire, we're going to just throw shield lobs at them. But otherwise, we're just going to focus on single targeting down the boss. Now, if the DPS of the party is good enough, then some parties will just skip the mechanics on this fight and power through. It looks like our party members... It doesn't look like anybody's going to go get them. So, if your party member is doing that, there's only so much you can do. So, I'm not going to lose aggro on the boss. At this point, I have so much. So, I'm safe to be the one doing this. Just throwing out shield lobs. This last enemy we're not going to be able to get. So we're all taking some damage, but we're fine. There we go. Again, not as clean as I would have liked, but we did the best we could do as tank. So one thing to know as tank is the way this game works is they front load a huge amount of enmity on tank abilities. While you have your tank stance on, like I said, we had gotten to a point where I'm like, I don't even need to attack the boss ever again, and I know I have permanent aggro on him. So that's why I was able to just like focus entirely on throwing the shields on the little flames. That being said, it would have been better for one of our DPS to be handling it, so. Good opportunity for some decently sized pulls here. These mantises die very quickly. The pythons are a little bit more beefy. Just keep in mind that if your allies pull on one of the winches, it will spawn enemies. And you need to be there to pick those enemies up, so just be mindful of that. Like that gas bomb there. Our party does not have a lot of AoE, so there's not actually a huge benefit to grouping up a whole bunch of enemies here. So we're just going to do smaller pulls. Gonna grab that last one and keep running. Okay, now I'm going to use my sprint. We're going to pull this group. Do our AoE. I'm going to pop Rampart. Notice how the Coliseum Python is going down the slowest. So once it's time to switch to a single target rotation, that's who we're going to target. And for the boss, basically you want to tank him outside of the water because he electrifies the water that's underneath him. So we just got to make sure that we pull him over to the little ledge. Every once in a while, he's going to go invincible and move into the middle of the water and electrify the water. While the water is electrified, he's just going to send little minions at us, little lightning sprites at us that we need to kill, which is really easy. And then he does some ground target AoEs, so just be prepared to move out of the AoEs. But otherwise, easy peasy. Very basic. The hardest part really is just fighting him outside the water. So the boss is going to throw those AoEs at you as the tank. So you just make sure that you're standing. Oh, well, no, I guess he also targets the healer as well. Just give your party room, basically. And then he's going to come back to us. So just go ahead and tank him right here. Notice where I'm standing. I'm not in the water, but I'm really close to it. So the way the rest of my party has all this space. And I can still grab the enemies as they run by. Now, if you've got a melee DPS with you, like a pugilist, you want to take them like back here. So that way they've got room to hit them from the side. But because I only have casters, I was taking them right on the corner. And that's just where you're going to learn to kind of read your, the party members that you have and set things up accordingly. All right, so we're here in the last room, and we have just one final pull before the boss. Resist the urge to use your fight or flight, because the boss is right on the other side of this door, and we want that for the boss. So the boss, this is the final boss of the dungeon. He combines the flames from the first boss and the invincibility frames from the second. So we are going to tank him in the center. And then basically once he goes invincible, we're going to kill the flames. All right. I was giving them hints. We have 2 sprouts actually, so. Okay, so you see how he goes invulnerable, and he makes the area underneath him fire. We've got these sprites that spawn, and we've got these flames. Okay, so we want to pull him back so that way the flames don't get to him. Give our party plenty of room. All right, we are good. So he's going to do another phase here. Oh gosh. There's flames right here. All right. So I'm going to use the fight or flight right here. Something's going on with my mouse, and it's not wanting to do my one ability. Okay. I'm going to pull him here into the middle. Pull him away from the flames, obviously. There we go. So a little bit rough, but we had 2 brand new sprouts with us who had never been in here before. But that's the dungeon. Make sure you always give a commendation. So we're going to give a commendation to our healer, because he was a real champion throughout the entire thing with us. So that is Halatali on tank. So again, pretty easy, but some more complex stuff. So compared to like Copperbill, for example, where it didn't really matter where you were tanking them as long as you moved out of the AoEs. This is the first dungeon that's teaching you from a tank's perspective, okay, the importance of tanking enemies in certain places. And as you saw, I definitely, I made a mistake there by tanking the boss so close to one of the flame pillars. It's just kind of the way the things played out there. But it was something we were able to recover. The party jumped on it, and I, as a tank even, if you focus on killing those flames, you're pretty good to solo like one torch, right? So 2 torches light at the same time at different parts of the dungeon, or the arena. So if other people are taking care of the other torch, you can take care of the one that's close. But if a couple slip through, it's fine. Again, it's forgiving. The point is to approach this not to be perfect. Approach it to learn. Approach it to say, okay, I'm seeing these new mechanics. How do these work? Healer. Halatali. You're watching this guide. You may be a little bit anxious. Halatali is going to be your first dungeon, possibly. If you didn't do the other ones, might be one of your first dungeons that you do with other players instead of doing it with duty support. So what do you need to know? You're going to be level synced down to level 23. At level 23, you are still limited to the core grouping of abilities that we've been using, right? So we have Asuna for removing detrimental effects, things like poisons. We have Cure to cure a single target. We have Medica to do an AoE cure on our entire party. And then we have Stone 2, which is for single target DPS. And Arrow, which is our damage over time ability that can be used while running. So if you did watch my guides on Copperbell, Tamtara, Sastasha, you'll know that my recommendation as a healer is to run with your tank. Your tank is going to run ahead of the group and group enemies up. They're going to be grabbing enemies as they go. You want to run with your tank. While you're running, you want to be casting Arrow on the targets, all on the enemies that your tank is pulled aggro on. If you cast Arrow, the way it works, because it's a damage over time ability, it does a small amount of damage up front and then a small amount of damage over time. This means it's very safe to use during pulls, and it's basically safe to always have up against the boss. The amount of enmity or aggro that it pulls is very low, so you're safe to use it. The only way you'll pull somebody by using Arrow is if you cast it on an enemy the tank hasn't hit yet. So the tank has ran past that enemy. The enemy will be running at your tank, but he effectively has no enmity on it. So the second anybody does anything, a heal or any damage to that enemy, they're going to switch to target that person. But if your tank is good, they'll either be doing, like if it's a warrior, they'll be throwing tomahawks as they run. If it's a paladin or a gladiator, they'll be doing their shield lob. And also they should just be doing their AoE ability as they're running. If they hit the enemy even one time with their AoE ability, they're good to use Arrow. So we're going to run along, we're going to use Arrow. Then once we stop, we're going to use Stone 2 on single target DPS, right? So we want to use it on a single target, preferably the one that the tank is targeting, because that's the one that everybody else should also be targeting as far as single target goes. If it's an AoE pull, people will be doing their AoE rotation, so it won't matter much. And then just healing only when necessary. Halatali has very, very low damage requirements. Your tank is not going to be taking a lot of damage, except for the larger pulls. So if your tank does a large pull, then yeah, you're going to need to heal your tank. So just be mindful of that. If you see the tank pull 4, 5, 6, 7, there are some larger pulls possible in here. Then yeah, by all means, focus on healing, get a feel for how much damage your tank is taking. And then if you can just weave in throwing an arrow up on an enemy that it's expired on or that doesn't have arrow on it, that's probably going to be sufficient. If your tank's not taking a lot of damage, if they're doing a good job with their mitigations or they're doing smaller pulls, by all means, just go crazy. As I recommended on the other guides, make sure you're always casting. So while you're running, you're casting Arrow. While you're stopped, you're either casting Stone 2 or Cure at all times. There's always a spell being prepped, always, every single global cooldown, and you'll be good. All right, so while we're running, again, I threw an arrow up, but he hasn't touched that imp yet. Now he's touched the imp, so we're good. Or at least somebody touched the imp. Again, we're rotating through the enemies. We are letting him gather them up. Targeting the ones that he has targeted. Okay, gonna throw a cure on him. Yeah, see, this is one of those larger pulls that I was referring to. Oh no. Alright, we're using Medica here. I've got one attacking me. The tank has not pulled it off of me yet. So again, went a little crazy there, but I just stayed calm, did my heals, kept my arrow up. So notice what I'm doing. I'm seeing when the names change on the enemies. When they go from being orange to this darker red, that means that they have aggro on somebody, right? And that means we're safe to cast an arrow on them. Alright. So for this boss, again, you shouldn't really have to heal the tank too much. You may have to heal him once, maybe twice. The mechanic of this boss is to do as much damage to it as possible, as fast as possible. Eventually, these gates will open, and these little flames will start spawning. So right now you see these flames over here. And there's the other gate, right? If the flames get to this center bonfire, I'm going to zoom out a little and show it, then they start doing damage. So I'm going to just here. Alright, they want to skip it. So some parties will just want to skip the mechanic and just burn down the boss. Once the boss dies, all the flames die. But the appropriate way to do it, and the way some groups may require you to do it, is to attack those flames as they come. So just be mindful of that. But again, this is a very easy dungeon. This is very much the first non-duty support dungeon, so they take it very easy. Those winches are required, so don't let the party run past them. The winches will either drop a treasure coffer or they will spawn enemies, depending on the winch. So, as we're running, now they're red, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit them all with arrow. Target the lowest one, because the arrow does do a small amount of damage up front, so it's worth it to keep casting it. Its MP cost is very negligible, so you're safe to do so. You notice I'm not topping off the tank. I'm not making an effort to keep the tank at 100% HP. If you watch any of my videos, you'll know that I always say the tank's HP is a resource. We only die when his HP gets to 0, or her HP gets to 0. So there's no reason to spend a lot of time min-maxing and trying to keep it exactly topped up. You help the group a lot more by doing damage, making sure that you're, getting your arrows up on all the enemies. That will kill the enemies faster. And if the enemies are dead, they're not doing damage to your tank. So in a way, killing enemies, doing damage, is a form of healing. It's just an indirect thing. Alright, so for this next boss, the only thing you really need to know is to stay out of the water. So the boss is going to keep moving into and out of the center of the arena. Oh, we're going to go to this side. I think I've been playing this game for 10 years and we have never done this side. So the boss, whenever he runs to the center, he's going to make the water electrified. And you don't want to be in the water when he does that. And he'll just spawn adds and sometimes throw attacks at us. And you'll notice while he's over there, he's invulnerable. So the best thing we can do is just attack the sprites and stay out of the AoEs when they spawn. Again, you really shouldn't have to heal your tank at all this fight, as long as he's not getting hit and not standing in the water. Make sure you do refresh your arrow on the boss. And then go nuts. We'll traditionally do it 2 to 3 times depending on the DPS of your groups. Always move out of the ground target AoE. As a caster, you can safely do that. Again, refresh your arrow. And I'm not healing our our party at all. I've purely done DPS this entire fight. We have a Sprout. We actually have 2 Sprouts with us. So these aren't even like super experienced players. The warrior is, but the other 2 aren't super experienced, and we're still doing fine. Now this final boss kind of combines the invulnerability of the second boss and the fire concept from the first boss. So it's kind of a mix. So we're going to be targeting him, then he'll go invulnerable, and he will light up these torches. See, this is invulnerability, right? So I'm trying to do damage, it says invulnerable. And so these torches will start having these flames. We don't want to let the flames get to the boss. There are these fire sprites that spawn that is different than the flames. The fire sprite, once those fire sprites die, there's usually 2 of them, that's when the boss can be targeted again. So just be mindful of that. I know this seems hectic, but that's only because we're staying busy. If you look over on the left-hand side, our party's not taking any damage. So there's nothing for us to worry about here. I'm gonna kill, yep. I will refresh arrow. Now this last time, he lit the torches, but he didn't go invulnerable. At this point, we are safe to just burn him down. He has such low HP that you can kill him easily before the fires get to him. And that is it. So that is Halatali as a healer. Again, it moves quick. It's only really that first big room with the large pulls that you have to be mindful of. Make sure people are getting the winches in the second area. And then the third area goes by super fast. Again, it's really only effectively one big pull of 3 enemies, which you don't even have to heal through at all. And the boss, you don't have to heal either, as long as you're killing the flames and people aren't doing silly things like standing in AoEs. So, very easy. If you have anxiety about healing in particular, this is a good dungeon to really practice healing on before some of the later runs that start getting a little bit more chaotic and adding more elements. This is a really good one to practice with. So that is it. That is Halatali on healer. Halatali on physical ranged DPS. Very similar to the other runs if you watch my guides on Tamtara and Copperbell Mines and Sastasha. Halatali is just another standard duty. You're going to have your AoE pulls, where you're going to be spamming your quick knock and weaving in bloodletter as you go. And then you're going to have your single target, which is where you're going to do your heavy shot, your straight shot, your bloodletter, and your venomous bite, right? As you'll see, and we'll get into it when we get into the dungeon, but 2 of the bosses, well, really all 3 of them, have phases. And it's the first and the last boss have flame phases where they start spawning these little floating fireballs. And if the fireballs get to a central location, it starts doing big damage to the group. So you just have to be mindful of the fireballs. If you're not doing enough damage on the boss to kill the boss, you need to kill those fireballs. So in general, the strategy is to kill the fireballs. The second boss has an invulnerability phase where it's basically you do damage to the boss, then he goes invulnerable and we fight some enemies. Then we do damage to the boss, he goes invulnerable again, we fight the enemies, and then we kill the boss after those phases are done. And then the last boss, as I mentioned earlier, it's got one of the flame phases, but it's also got an invulnerability phase on top of the flame phase. So he goes invulnerable while those flames are spawning, which actually in a way makes him easier because a lot of people skip the flame phase on the first boss. You'll see, we're going to burn through that first boss. So because they skip it, it's kind of a bad habit to do that. There's later dungeons and later encounters where you can't skip a phase unless you're overgeared for it, but that's a discussion for another time. In general, you should expect to have to do the mechanics of the fight. And Halatali is so easy. This is one that is, if you have anxiety, you're a new player, you're not sure about playing with other players, this is a great first one to do because it's very low damage, very easy to understand mechanics. So this one's so easy that you can more or less ignore the mechanics for the first boss, but the second boss and third boss, those invulnerability phases, you can't do anything about those. They go invulnerable, you have to deal with the enemies during those phases. So I'll show them all to you and I'll break it down. Aside from that, the dungeons itself does have some larger pulls with some AoEs in them. If your tank's doing a pretty good job though, they'll be grouping up large groups of enemies. And as a ranged DPS, Ranged DPS has the strongest spammable AoE in the game during dungeons. So this is your bread and butter. You should be very excited about this because the size of the poles are going to allow you to really do a lot of damage and help the team kill things very fast. So we're going to be using Quick Knock a lot outside of basically boss fights. And I'll show you that. Oh yeah. This is going to be an insane run. So we have a dancer, we have a scholar? No, this is an astrologian and a warrior. None of these players are new. We're going to go very fast. So we're going to keep Peloton up. Peloton makes us go faster. While we're running, I'm going to start by throwing up a venomous bite on these enemies. And then we're going to use our Quick Knock while we're running. Again, throw up venomous bite on these enemies. And then we're going to stop and do Quick Knock. This is the first boss that I mentioned earlier. So again, we are fighting just the fire main. But take note that there are these torches behind these gates. I'm going to zoom out so you can see them. The gates are going to open. You see how it just got brighter? And now that gate is open and there's fires coming over there. And then eventually these gates over here. See that gate? They're going to open up. That being said, again, most groups are just going to skip the mechanic and just do damage to the boss. So the dancer's actually getting hers. So as a ranged DPS, it is our job to get those. So make sure you are getting them if your other team members are. But aside from that, easy peasy, just keep doing damage on the boss. Keep your venomous sting up, your venomous bite, sorry. And you're good. So this second area is a long winding path, as you can see. And there are these winches, chain winches along the way. We need to be clicking those winches. The tank can't do it, so. Traditionally, it is the DPS that clicks the winches. So for this boss, as I mentioned during the preamble, this is the boss that has phases where he goes invulnerable. So you want to start off with a venomous bite, immediately get your single target rotation going on him, because he's going to go invulnerable. He runs to the center here. Stay out of the water. The water turns purple. That means the water is electrified. So we just got to kill the monsters. And my venomous bite is still on him. So I'm getting the value of having cast that venomous bite right away. Again, if you don't have your tab targeting set up, I do recommend it. Tab targeting makes this a lot easier. Instead of trying to click on a single one, you can just tag through them. Now I could refresh venomous bite, but he's going to die way too soon for us to get value out of it. So just do your standard, your heavy shot into your straight shot. That's the second boss. This last boss, again, just combines the concepts between the two. So there are invulnerability phases that he will go into. And during those invulnerability phases, he will spawn little flames that come from the torches that we have to kill. Just stay calm, attack the enemies while he's invulnerable. While he's not invulnerable, you'll see that he'll have like a big circle around him. While he's not invulnerable, go crazy. Do as much damage to him as possible, and he'll be dead before you know it. See, so he's already invulnerable. That's the big circle under him. So we're going to see these little flames. We're going to attack them. Once we kill these fire sprites, he becomes vulnerable. Again, I guess would be the right word. So just play zoomed out. Keep an eye on what's going on. We went invulnerable again, so just doing our phases. Hit the flames. We do have another one coming over here. Now, he has one last phase where he's going to summon a lot of flames, but he doesn't go invulnerable. You want to just burn him down at this point. So our Dancer used Limit Break, and we did the attacks, and that is it. Saying thank you for the run. I'm going to give our Dancer the commendation because she was doing a lot of damage with us. Definitely moved very quickly. And that is it. So that is Halatali on physical range DPS. Again, super quick run. Less than 10 minutes is a total. That's all the bosses, all the pulls, doing all the winches, doing all the phased combat. Not scary at all. Again, if you're having any anxiety about playing with players, Halatali is the one to do. So go unlock it, load in, practice that AoE rotation and doing your single target, and you're going to be gravy. You're going to be in a good spot. So that is it. That's Halatali on range DPS. Magical DPS for Halatali. So similar to other dungeons, we don't have a lot of ability to do things while running. Effectively, we only have Scathe available to us while we are running. Halatali, for the most part, is a lot of running around. So just like Copperbell Mines, Tamtara, Deepcroft, and Sistasha, you're effectively going to be doing your AoE rotation whenever there are 3 or more enemies and the party has stopped moving. If there are less than 3 enemies, then we're just going to do our single target rotation. Against bosses, we'll be keeping Thunder up. Thunder is worth casting against bosses. Similar to the other dungeons, don't get anxiety if you start missing a lot of casts, if enemies die before your casts get off. That's just natural. It just happens in Halatali. It happens in Copperbell. It happens in these early dungeons. Later on, you're going to get a lot more utility on your class. It's going to help you avoid that. But for right now, all we can really do is hardcast these abilities the best we can and wish for the best. So this is a very easy dungeon. So again, if you're having anxiety about playing with other players, I recommend practicing in Halatali. You cannot do duty support there. So this is effectively the earliest dungeon that is players only. So lean into it, practice it. If you need to do it a couple of times until you start feeling comfortable, absolutely. We're going to queue in and I'll show you exactly how the flow of the dungeon will go. The bosses of this dungeon are phased bosses. This is the first dungeon that's got proper multiple phases to all of their bosses. I'll walk you through what those phases are as we get to each boss. While we're running, until the tank stops, the only thing we can effectively do is just cast Scathe over and over. So, let's do that. There's a bunch of optional pulls in here that your tank is going to likely skip. And I'm rotating through. I'm going to target actually the imp that is lowest. See if we can kill that imp. Alright. This is usually where they're going to stop. This is a pretty significant pull. So just target one of the enemies that has a large amount of HP and just start going crazy with your AoE. And we're done. Alright, so we're at the first boss already. The first boss is Firemane. You want to keep Thunder up on Firemane and then do your single target rotation on him. Throughout the fight, he's going to open up these gates that are covering torches and start summoning these fire mobs. It is your responsibility to make sure that none of the fire enemies get to this bonfire in the middle of the room that you can see here. So one of the best things you can do is keep Thunder up. And then just kind of play a little bit zoomed out. Keep an eye. See these flames that are slowly marching forward. And as they start getting closer, You just got to be mindful. So I'm going to walk over and I'm going to scathe. And one single scathe is going to be enough to kill it. See? So now what he's basically telling us is that we don't need to fight the things. They want us to just kill the boss. But because I'm teaching you the mechanic, I want you to see how the mechanic works. But that's it. It's very easy. Once the boss dies, all of the flames despawn. If you let the flames get to the central bonfire, it does a big AoE burst. But again, most people will skip that mechanic because the DPS is high enough. And we did have thunder up on the boss, so it was doing damage to them. Alright, so in this region, because there's not really a lot we can do while running, we should be clicking on these winches. Us or the healer, really. The winches have to be clicked, so make sure your party isn't running past any of the winches. So this is the room for the second boss. The second boss has invulnerability phases. So he's this big lizard, and he is in the center of this pool. He's an electric lizard. His name is the Thunderclap Weaver. And essentially you want to stay up on the ramp at all times. Never go down into the water, because he's going to electrify that water, and all of our team members are going to have to run out of it. See how it all just turned purple? Now we have ads that have spawned. Let's just kill the ads. And you can try casting, but by the time you cast, they're going to be dead. As soon as the last ad dies, he stops being invulnerable. We can do damage to him again. He's going to go back into that phase as soon as he starts moving again. There. So again, the water is purple. Now most tanks are going to tank him over here, which buys the party more time so they're not running around so much. But again, every dungeon is going to be slightly different, so just kind of follow your tank's lead. It's not your job to tell them how they want to run the dungeon, so you're fine. Alright. Once again, once he's done, just start going crazy on the single target damage again, and he is finished. This last boss, you are safe to park yourself. You don't need to move at all as long as you park yourself somewhere in the center of the room here. So you want to put yourself kind of around this area. He's going to go invulnerable throughout the fight. While he's invulnerable, these torches are going to light up, and you see he just went invulnerable. That's what his invulnerability looks like. So the torches light up, and we need to fight these sprites. You will have to move if you get targeted with that AoE, but... And then, once again, we have these flames from earlier. Now, these are a little bit stronger. You notice one single scathe that didn't kill them. So we are making a point of killing these. Refresh your thunder on him. And then he's going to do another invulnerability phase. We need to kill the sprites. We need to kill the flames. Just keeping an eye on him. Okay. Now the tank's tanking him very far away, but we're safe. We're good. So we cast thunder on him. Now this time, we are good to just go crazy. He will not go invulnerable again. He will start spawning more flames, but because he's not invulnerable, you're safe to just go wild. And that is it for Halatali. Super quick, about a 7 to 8 minute run probably, and you're good to go. A little bit difficult, Similar to what we were talking about in the other dungeons, you do have to keep running along with the enemies, which can, or with the party members, which can be a little bit rough. But on the whole, not bad at all. You can definitely do it. I'm going to give our Dragoon a commendation because the other two just booked it. They left. But yeah, so that's it. Now, again, Halatali is the least dangerous of the duty finders. So, you can't run without doing duty support first, right? So, oh, he's dancing with us. I'm going to give him a hug. Big hug. Thanks for running with us. So yeah, so very easy. And if you're having trouble or if things are a little chaotic or you're looking for an opportunity to practice, by all means, run Halatali. Halatali is going to be your de facto, easy to learn, low risk, very speedy dungeon to run through. So I hope that this worked out well for you. I hope that the guide is helpful. I hope that you're having a good time in Final Fantasy XIV, and I hope to see you again. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.